Good morning, or should I say good afternoon. Please have a seat. My name is Calvin Bowie. I am a chef. I am a YouTuber. But I also am an entrepreneur. We started a recent restaurant group called CTY Restaurant Group, where we are trying to build local grassroots IP here in Vietnam and then take it to the world. There's a lot more to Vietnamese food than just pho and banh mi, as Peter will talk to you about. And we really want to tell those stories. So to be up here with, and I'm going to brag a little bit, because honestly, we've been friends for a long time and we've also been in the same industry. The first and only Vietnamese American Michelin-Star chef in the fucking world. Congratulations to that. Asia's top 50 restaurant, the creator of the $100 banh mi, the creator of the $100 pho, 3 restaurants in one building. Peter, how do you do it, man?
Good morning, everyone. It's, I think one of the beautiful thing about living and working in Saigon, I think there are things you can do here that you cannot do in other places, I think. And that's the beauty of it. And, there's a lot of temptations to go out, have fun, do all kinds of things, but there's all kinds of opportunities to do amazing things. And I think I would not have been able to do what I have done, I think, in any other city in the world. I live in New York and Hong Kong, other places, and they have their own special thing. But I think for me, for Saigon right now, with the ecosystem that we have with all the people in the F&B and the support and also the customer, I think it makes it possible. I think part of it is Saigon.
Yeah. We talk about your restaurants now, Anan, Poto Pho, Nyo Nyo. But let's take it back to your first occupation. You weren't always a chef. Can you please tell us that story?
I left Vietnam as a refugee when I was about 12 years old, and I went to the U.S. Not knowing a word of English, and so that's the very early, the first start. It's trying to adapt to life in the U.S., trying to adjust, and just trying to survive. And I think that's the first thing, and then the process trying to do something. And then, at that time, I somehow managed to get into Yale. And then all my colleagues, everybody was working either in investment banking or one of the big consulting firms. So I kind of followed that path because at that point I wasn't clear what I wanted to do. I studied to be a doctor, but then I realized that I didn't want to work in a hospital all the time and dealing with sick people. The idea was fun, but when I was doing volunteer work, working in a hospital, I realized it wasn't for me. So I kind of followed the path with all my friends, and I went to work in investment banking for Morgan Stanley for over 15 years, working in New York, London, Hong Kong. A lot of people think somehow maybe if you change career, doing something completely different, somehow what you did before wasn't good. I don't think that's the case. I think it is possible now in our world and where we are, we can do multiple things with our lives. And and sometimes, it's you only make changes when really bad shit happens to you. Because most of us, when we're doing something really comfortable, we're happy. I had a big office in a big job, big title and stuff like that. Most people, and we're not willing to leave those kind of things because it's comfort. And to some extent, there's a certain amount of, there's money and there's title that go along with it. But the reason I made the change was 2 things. I was, actually fired from Morgan Stanley 2 times. The first time, I went back to Vietnam to work for a couple of years for AIG doing insurance, and then they called me back to do a really big project, and then I worked for them for another year. Then I got fired from Morgan Stanley again the second time. Then I said, okay, do I get back on the saddle again, try to do that? But then I decided, okay, maybe it's time to take a change, try to do something that I want, something different I wanted to do, which is really something in food. But even then, I knew I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I took a year off. I went to Le Cordon Bleu It was actually quite random chance that I was living in Hong Kong at the time. A friend of mine was running a really small private kitchen at that time, what we call, it's a kind of unofficial like a restaurant upstairs in a nondescript building, and she was running a dessert bar that only did dessert, tasting menu dessert, and she was returning back to Canada because her boyfriend at that point was going back to Canada, and a friend of mine said, Peter, this small little space called Rikiki is available. Do you want to take it? And the rent was really cheap, so I took a dessert bar, which had no cooking equipment at all, in a walk-up building in Hong Kong. Then I said, okay, I'm going to try to turn it into a restaurant and make pho and tasting menu. And that's the beginning of what I started, a place called Chum Chum Noodle Bar. At that point, I had no idea what I was doing. I had 2-3 part-time people with me. They had no idea what they were doing also too. And one of them had no experience at us. He's now running it. He's a big chef in Hong Kong now. But sometimes, you start with very little and you take a small amount of risk, and that's really the beginning how to make the change from finance, investment banking, go into the F&B restaurant world. And it's, that's a fairly major step, but it's not a big step, And then from there on, I opened a couple of restaurants in Hong Kong, and then returning back to Vietnam about 7 years ago.
I know a lot of people came to this conference to learn about tech, learn about investments, whether it's in different areas. But in this room, is there anybody in the F&B world looking to invest, whether it's in restaurants, it's in bars, it's in QSR, quick serve restaurants? Anybody in here, please raise your hand. 1, 2. I'll be 3. I'll be 3. Okay, there's a few in the back. I know, John, you're in the tech space also. I'll ask a few more questions. I want to do a little Q&A because a lot of you guys have been here all morning, and I really like to bring out that energy in the crowd. So let me talk to you about this. What have been your biggest challenges as somebody who is trying to tell a story with your food? You're taking something on the street, something that costs literally $1, $1.50, yet you're elevating it with techniques, with product, but you're telling a story. What are your main challenges in those 7 years?
I think, during COVID, my favorite song is I played a lot, Staying Alive. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges is really staying alive. And I mean, beyond that, we should really, trying to do something that is long-term, that is sustainable, that has some meaning, some value, and that's really important. Because I think particularly in a place like Vietnam, there's a lot of short-term stuff. People want to make money quickly. They want to be successful quickly. And let's say things can be successful only for a short time. And I think what I try to do is try to build something that has some value, some meaning, some substance, and that can last a long time. And that's really hard to do. That means you have to say no to certain things and stay focused about what you want to do and try to do something that's meaningful. Sometimes making tougher decisions. Let's say we tried, and I think like any industry, one of the hardest things is really dealing with people. I think, try to build a team that can work with you because, the restaurant is never one person. It's about a team that involves a lot of people from the kitchen to service bar, and then all that stuff somehow had to work together, and we're trying to build and then the idea of a restaurant, a menu, and all that stuff. And then that's really the basic of running a business or a restaurant. And the other thing then is, how do I wanted to do something that has some meaning about me as a Vietnamese, returning to Vietnam, working and living here, and what can I do, what value can I add to this place? And I think I decided, okay, I did finance work before, I did other things, I continue to do that, but where I could do something really different and make a difference in this place is through the food arena. And really, part of it is really what we call, it's looking at Vietnam to food as a kind of, I talked to Hal a little bit before about this, is that the idea of branding, which is, how do we elevate the Vietnamese brand? Because with Vietnamese food, always including overseas Vietnamese. When we turn and we say we know that the food is really good, but the second thing that we're going to think about is that it has to be inexpensive or cheap. We want bánh mì that's 20,000 dong phở now, let's say 40,000 dong or something
Agreed.
like that. But because of that, our food, our brand, our culture is get fixed at that level. It cannot go higher. But Vietnam now is changing, so we have to really change people's perception about the value of Vietnamese food, and to some extent, it's culture. And a lot of what I do is really try to use the food to change people's perception about Vietnamese culture, and that means that we have to deliver the goods.
Yes, we do.
We have to make something. It's not just about talking. When we make a dish, let's say we have to make sure they can stand up with, let's say, the best of Japanese food or French food, or let's say Italian. These are the ones that are very highly valued versus, let's say, Vietnamese food and other Asian cuisine. So, and I think one of the crazy thing I do is, aside from making really good food that has some value, that's enjoyable, but we do something crazy like the $100 pho and $100 bánh mì, because these are very iconic Vietnamese products to really make people rethink about, when I'm eating a bánh mì, I'm eating a pho. What is the value of that?
Sitting up here listening to you speak it's just so inspiring, especially for me as a young chef. I could take one question and one question only, then we'll break for lunch. Is there anything the audience wants to ask? Oh, there's a hand in there. Can I get a microphone in the back, please? The gentleman with his hand up. You weren't stretching, were you? Were you asking a question? Yeah, okay, good. Guy in the green shirt, please.
Yeah. I can see that F&B business is a very easy market to establish at the beginning, but it's also very easy to be bankrupt. So, so I wonder what is the most important thing for a person to maintain their F&B business for a long time.
Peter, how did you do it for 7 years?
Well, we've been here for almost 7 years now. I think in F&B business, the failure rate is quite high. It's one of the toughest business to make it successful, particularly long term. It's yes, you are right. In Vietnam now, it's and in general the startup cost is fairly low, so it doesn't take a huge amount of money versus, let's say, if you're in Hong Kong, New York, and London. So anyone with just an idea, some ambition, they can do it, and that's the beauty of it. But I think to make it long term, you have to really, just like any business, really think carefully first, and then do things like market analysis to know what I'm delivering, how is it unique, different, and what value is delivering within what's available already in the F&B space, for example, and then making it long term. I think a lot of businesses fail because of partnership issues. So that's one thing that you have to be careful of. I think in terms of working with the right partners, because even the businesses are going well, but the partnership doesn't work well. Sometimes that can destroy the business. And then the other, I think, is trying to think of people more long-term, rather than, let's say, we hire people, we want people. We're trying to build a team that's long-term. That means, I think, trying to find people that may not be superstars, anything like that, because the superstars, they're
going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, they want to go somewhere else. So most of the time, we don't recruit superstars. We wouldn't recruit solid people, let's say people who work because they really need to work to make a living. There are people that go in F&B because they want to be a famous chef, celebrity chef, and stuff like that. So during the interview process, I make sure I ask the people who they are, what they want to work. If someone, let's say, oh, Peter, I want to go work for a Michelin-Starred Restaurant, I say, okay, there's the door, you go out. You go work in another restaurant. And but if someone is really solid, want to learn, and then we develop also a lot of young people who are starting out in the beginning, because we start them from the ground up. That means they don't have a lot of baggage when they come to us, and also that means we can keep them longer. So I think partnership and people are very important to maintaining a long-term successful business. And then the other one I think is, try not to do any bullshit, because I think you can't fake yourself and you can't fake other people. Try to be real, try to be honest. And I think when we're making the food, we try to have that sense of honesty. Let's say when we're making the dish, we say, sometimes, you have a great dish from the street going to the restaurant. It's like, nothing you want to eat, and it's not like what's out there. And so we have a no bullshit rule. So when we make something, we look at it and say, is it real? Is it good? And, is it bullshit? If it's bullshit, then we say, okay, we throw it out, we don't do it. And then second thing, we try to look for something that has, we call đặc biệt right now. If is a dish, what we do is something special or not. And usually when we look at each other as a team, now it's a process where they know now when it's đặc biệt or not. And we look at it, we say, oh, okay, it's not đặc biệt yet, but it's good. We work on it some more. We leave it on site. We don't serve it to the customer. We continue to work maybe 3 months more, 6 more months until we have it where we think is đặc biệt. Then we put that on the menu. And I think that sense of honesty is also very important, because sometimes you pretend to yourself and then you think you can pretend and give bullshit to people. And I think that's something that we try to be very careful, to be aware of what the food, the value that we're delivering to people, and try to be honest about it. Because I think you can fake people a little bit, but it's to make long-term successful, then you need to have something that's substance, that has some meaning, and also, it's not some bullshit that you're trying to give to people.
Well said. We'll be hovering outside. If you want to do any Q&As personally with one of us, I will be happy to answer any of your questions. Of course, Peter will also. But with that being said, I want to say thank you to everybody who sat through the conference thus far. I know we're kind of running in late right now. Hal's giving me the eyes. But my name is Calvin Bowie. I'll be outside for the next hour and a half. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to get to know you. Any questions about F&B or even investing in that space, please find me. Peter, all the best to you, buddy.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone.